We are going to take a look at Learning Checkpoint 1.2, which is available in the OHS underneath that lesson 1.2. So we'll just go ahead and start with question number 1 that looks like this. Select all 4 true descriptions of the graph of y is less or equal to 3 times x plus 4. Now you have a lot of choices going on, but the instructions tell you to select all 4 of the true descriptions. So these answer choices happen to be set up in pairs for you. So we'll go ahead and start with deciding between choices A and B. Those are about the y-intercept. Your choices are the y-intercept is either 0, 4 or 0, 3. In order to find the y-intercept, what you need to do is plug a 0 in the place of x into the inequality and then solve it like you would an equation. So I'll go ahead and get that one started for you and show you what it looks like to plug a 0 in the place of x. So you will have y, and then we're going to treat this like an equation just for simplicity's sake. 3 times 0 plus 4. And then you will use your order of operations to get a simplified answer from this equation to get the appropriate y value that matches your x value of 0. And that should help you narrow down your choice between either A or B. Then down here, choices C through F, you're going to choose 1 about the type of line, and then 1 about the type of shading. Now, if you pop over here to this table that I have for you that I showed you in class, you have a little cheat sheet on which inequality symbol matches the different descriptions of its graph. So when we have the less than sign right here, we have a dotted line and we shade below. When we have the greater than sign, we have a dotted line, we shade above, less or equal, solid and below, greater or equal, solid, and above. So you just need to match the appropriate symbol with what was given to you in this problem and figure out the appropriate type of line, either dotted or solid, and then also the shading above or below the line. And then that leaves you with your last 2 that you have to choose between, and it has to deal with plugging a point into the inequality to see which one is on the line. So you have either the point 1, 7 or the point 1, 5. Now, I'm going to be a smart test taker and notice that both of those have an x coordinate of 1. So that means if I plug in x equals 1, I should either get 7 as my answer or 5 as my answer. So again, just like when we were finding the y-intercept, we can evaluate by plugging in a certain value for x. So you will have y is, again, you can treat this like an equal sign for simplicity's sake. Y is equal to 3 times 1, since that's what both of those points tell me to plug in for x. And then plus 4, just like the rest of the problem says. You will use your order of operations to simplify this down and determine if y equals 7 or if y equals 5. So you should have 4 total boxes selected, 1 from the first pair, another one from the second pair, and so on. Question number 2 asks you to place the steps of graphing an equation in the correct order. So these drop down say 1, 2, and 3 on your checkpoint. What would you do to graph the equation y equals 2/5 x minus 6? When we talked about it in class, we said that we should always start with plotting our y-intercept. After you plot the y-intercept, you need to plot a second point by rising and running according to your slope. Then, once you have your 2 points, you will connect them with a straight line. Question number 3 says, this graph matches which system of equations? All of your answer choices contain 2 equations, and all of the equations happen to be in slope-intercept form. That's extremely useful for us because the slope-intercept form is super easy to develop based off of looking at the graph, because all you need is the slope and the y-intercept to create these equations. So if we come over to the graph, we need to choose the correct equations for both the red line and the blue line. Let's start with the red line. The red line passes through the y-axis at this point 0, 4. So I know that my y-intercept of the red line is going to be positive 4. So I should have a plus 4, at the end of the equation for the red line. Now, the only other thing that I need to do is find the slope of my red line. We can do that in a couple of ways. You can either count the spaces up and down between points that are easy to see on the graph, or you can plug into the slope formula. When I have the picture, I like to just pick another point that's easy to see. I'm going to choose this one right here. And now I'm going to count my rise and count my run between my two red points. So I see that I'm rising 2 spaces, 1, 2, and I'm running 1 space, 1. So my slope, my m value for the red line is going to be 2 over 1, or just 2. So my slope of my red line is positive 2, and the y-intercept is positive 4. You just need to find the correct equation that matches that information. And now we're ready to move on to the blue line. I'm going to start with that y-intercept, and I'm crossing the y-axis down here at the point 0, -5. So I know that the correct equation will have a -5 at the end. Now I need the slope of this line. So I'm going to go find another point that's easy to see. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. I'm just choosing this one right here. And I'm going to go count my rise and my run between the two blue points. So I'm going to rise 1, 2 spaces, and we'll talk about negative versus positive in just a second. And my run is also 1, 2 spaces. Now I'm going to see that the overall slope of the blue line, it goes down. So I know that my overall slope is going to be negative by the time that I'm done. For the blue line, my slope is equal to my rise. I went down 2, so I'm going to make my rise negative, and then my run was 2. -2 divided by 2 is -1. So the slope of the blue line is going to be -1, and then the y-intercept of the blue line is going to be -5. And you will match the correct answer choice that contains the two equations that you would make from the information I wrote on the board. The last question from Learning Checkpoint 1.2 says, which point is on the graph of both of the lines? In order for two lines to share a point, that means that they have a common solution. So I'm literally just going to look for the place where my lines cross each other, where that red and that blue line cross, and it's at this green point right here, and you need to label the point correctly. Remember that the order that we do this is the x-coordinate first, then the y-coordinate. So you're going to look on your x-axis and figure out where are you left and right. Figure out where you are on this left and right axis, then figure out how far up and down you are to label the point for that one.